Am I the a-hole for breaking my promise to my stepkids and abandoning and traumatizing them because I did not want to parent them anymore? I met Will when I was 22. Will was 29, with 2 kids and had newly been widowed. We had a whirlwind courtship where he introduced me to the kids and got me involved in their lives very early, first few days after I met him. Will said really quickly he was sure I was the one, not only for himself but also for his kids, that we would have an incredible, happy family life. We got married when I was 23. Will was 30, and his kids were 8 and 6. Our wedding ceremony also included me and the kids making promises to each other, which was Will's idea. Soon after, Will shoved all the childcare onto me. I wasn't the stay-at-home spouse. I worked full-time and always have, but he always had reasons for me to do the childcare. Him being sore from doing a physical job, me being better at it since I babysat kids this age in the past and he never had, or girl stuff for his daughter, or cooking or anything. He always had some reason, and it ended up always on me. He started playing video games and relaxing from getting home until bedtime, because he was tired and he was bringing in the money and keeping the roof over everyone's heads, though that wasn't really true. He said he deserved to relax. Then he went out with his friends, or brought them back to drink beer and watch loud TV. Then he developed a major attitude with me and encouraged same to kids. They found it funny. He started openly disrespecting me and encouraged them to. He was the ultimate fun dad, and I got put in the role of the mean witch. Sometimes they all ganged up on me and mocked me, but also all expected me to serve them and constantly be jumping up to care for them. By the end of the first year, I realized the marriage was a big mistake, but felt guilty leaving because of my promises to the kids. Another year went by, and I realized that no matter how I tried, and how I knew they were only kids and didn't really blame them, I genuinely hated both of the kids. And I could not lie to myself anymore and pretend that I loved them. I did not, and I never would. One day, I just walked out, packed up everything of mine and moved out while nobody was at home. I left a note explaining it wasn't working and saying goodbye. That was the end. Cue a crap storm for my ex and a bitter divorce. But we both walked away with what we went into the marriage with. Not much for either of us. I had never legally adopted the kids, so I had no rights nor responsibilities about them, and I never reached out to any of them again. Honestly, I was just overjoyed to be rid of all of them. 15 years have gone by, and that seems like a lifetime ago, or another person's life, but I'm still in my 30s. I was recently shocked to get a message from Tamara, Will's daughter, now 25. Tamara said I betrayed and traumatized her for life for abandoning them after my promises to them. She said I had a responsibility to never leave no matter what. I know she remembers the horrible way she treated me though. Now for the top comments. Not today, Hall. There is never a responsibility to never leave. That is ridiculous. Sure, a 10-year-old may reasonably think so, but a 25-year-old should know better. Agreed. I was bitter when my mother left and divorced my stepdad when I was 10. As an adult, I realized that he was a guy who refused to get a job and just sat around the house all day. But he would leave for work in the morning as I was getting ready for school to keep up appearances. The father probably brainwashed the kids with made-up stuff. Brainwashed or not, this woman is 25, not 15. She should have enough perspective to realize that the fault lies completely with the father. At some point, a person has to look inward and seek help for their trauma, not inflict it on others. To seek out a person you haven't seen 15 years just to send them a nasty email saying Opie should have stayed in a horrible relationship for 10 to 12 years, purely for this woman's benefit? That is extremely selfish and cruel. Not today, Hall. Your husband didn't want a wife. He chose a younger woman and whisked her off her feet to be his live-in maid, nanny, and cook. He knew what he was doing when he asked you to make that promise to the kids, emotionally manipulating you into staying even though he treated you like crap. It's sad that the children lost their mother, but their father encouraging them to treat you like the evil stepmom was cruel to both you and them. Clearly, the behavior he showed continued after left. Eddie kept telling Tamara and her brother how awful you were. You got yourself out of there. Well done for being strong and wise enough to do so. Many people don't have the strength to do that. And you need to stay out of there, Opie. Not your circus, not your monkeys. You made a promise, but a promise is made with agreement/conditions usually from both parties. You didn't hold up your end because they were relentless with their bullying. Not they, Olubi. Messaged her back and explained it was a toxic marriage, that their dad set you up to be the family punching bag and nanny, that he wasn't looking for love or a partner, but a doormat, and he encouraged you kids to do the same. Tell her their hang-ups are their own, and then say that you are done with that chapter of your life, and will never again allow their father to drag your life down. Not today, Ho. Those kids have been fed lies and delusions about what the marriage was like. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for digging my heels in with my fiancé concerning surname? My fiancé, 27 female and I, 30 male, are getting married next year. I've pretty much let her run the show when it comes to the wedding and reception. Her last name is from her biological father who left when she was 2. Her mother remarried, and she has said for years that she can't wait to get married to change it. For 6 years, I've heard about what a piece of garbage this guy is. I am the last male to carry my name, and there are only 4 people with a name. So it's always been important to me to pass it on to my children. She wants to get married in a Catholic church. I'm not Catholic, but it means a lot to her, so I'm in the process of converting. She wanted to be close to her mom and sister, so I left a job I loved, found a new job, and we moved 4 hours away from my family to be closer to them. Her sister is a recovering alcoholic, so we don't keep liquor in our apartment despite that I like to have a beer after work. I've made many changes to accommodate her. She's acknowledged it, and I always respond that all I care about is passing my name on, and she responds with a number of days until our wedding. Shortly after we arrived, Dad contacted her out of the blue. He heard from relatives she was getting married and decided it was the perfect time to reconnect. All of a sudden, and now hear what a wonderful guy Paul is, how hard he's trying, and how wonderful it is that he's back. Often, I get home from work and she's gone, only to arrive home past midnight after being out with Paul and her half-siblings. I hate that I don't see her as much, but I know how much it means to her to have a relationship with him. At the same time, after years of hearing her trash him, I'm not even allowed to think bad thoughts about him. She's planning on having him walk her down the aisle, which I don't think is appropriate, but it's her decision. This weekend was the bombshell. She told me that her father brought up the importance of their name, that she's decided to keep it. This stung very badly. I replied that it was her choice. I just wanted to pass my name down. She smiled uncomfortably and informed me that she wanted the first boy to carry her name because it would mean so much to Daddy. I told her that is not happening. She suggested that we hyphenate as a compromise. I told her that there was no negotiation, that I had one thing that was important to me. I'd moved heaven and earth to give her what she needed and everything else, but I wouldn't budge an inch on this. She told me I was being unreasonable. I responded that I've been in her life longer than he has. I'd ask her who it was she was trying to start a life with, me or him. She started crying and accused me of being jealous of her relationship with her father. My parents and her mom and stepdad agree with me and think she's allowing Paul to influence her. Her sister thinks I was an A for asking that question and refusing to compromise. Not today, Hall. Not gonna read other comments. Staying out till midnight with your mostly estranged father after years of hating him is also freaking weird. You are not today, Hall. But unfortunately, you also can't force her to change her name. Use this as a time to evaluate your relationship. Perhaps couples counseling would be a good idea before saying your I do's. Good luck. Clarification. Well, I would love if she took it. And it hurt to know she's decided not to after 6 years of saying she wanted to change her name. I've never tried to force it. I accepted it as her decision. I only put my foot down when it came to our future children. Then you deserve better. She changed the game at the last minute. Info. What kind of compromises has she made for you? What kind of changes has she made for you? Honestly, she hasn't had to make any. Believe it or not, 90% of things we're in complete agreement. The things I've compromised on are things that I was willing to do to make her life easier. She wanted to live closer to her family. My parents are retiring within 10 years and likely leaving that area. So staying there didn't make a lot of sense other than I really liked my job and the people I worked with. I don't hate my current job, but it's not the same. I love the girl. The girl wants to live here. I go with the girl. I felt like taking my name was equivalent because while it's a big change, she knew it was important to me. So as of now, she's made no compromises or changes. Next story. Am I the a-hole for publicly telling my stepdad to buzz off after he complained about being excluded from the speech I wrote for my brother's funeral? My stepdad is an attention-seeking person. Did I say attention-seeking? As the saying goes, he is the bride/groom at every wedding and a corpse at every funeral. Can't help himself and has no issues showing how much he craves for attention. I've never been on good terms with him. He sold my childhood home and threw away stuff Dad left for me and my brother, who is 19. He convinced Mom to revoke my college fund and use it to renovate their new house, resulting in me moving out at 17. I'm now 26. My brother was still living with them when he passed. He suffered from physical/mental conditions that my stepdad called fake. My brother was diagnosed with stomach illness that landed him at the hospital a few times. But my stepdad insisted he was faking it to get attention, and so didn't help with money, so Mom ended up selling jewelry to help my brother. Then he passed away 2 months later. The funeral was last week. I was so devastated because I've always been close with my brother and had plans to do so much in the future. But going by Uncle's advice, I decided to write a speech, sort of like a goodbye letter to my brother as a closure for me, because I had so much to say but so little time. I gave the speech at the funeral. These moments felt long and pretty heavy. I went back to sit and had people pat on my shoulder trying to comfort me. But my stepdad approached me and openly asked why I didn't mention him anywhere in my long, detailed speech. I was speechless and enraged by his offending question that I literally said, "I don't know, because you're not the one who's dead?" He replied that, technically, the funeral is for the living. Then casually went on about how I should have mentioned some of the impact/benefits he had on me and my brother when he came into our life. I harshly reminded him how my mom started selling her jewelry to pay for my brother's medication, while all he did was claim my brother was faking being sick to get attention, called him pathetic to want more attention at the funeral than a departed person, and loudly told him to F off with his pathetic, attention-seeking bullcrap. He looked shocked and saw a number of guests looking at him awkwardly. He argued that I was being utterly disrespectful of him, and that he was generous enough to consider getting my brother a decent headstone. But it wasn't his fault that I refused to have his name on it. My brother and I never changed our last name, and my stepdad somehow wanted his name on my brother's headstone, otherwise he wouldn't pay for it. It turned into an argument, and I demanded to leave and got others involved. He left eventually, but kept telling my whole family about me making a scene and humiliating him out of old spite, and that I was inconsiderate enough of my brother to cause a scene at his funeral, basically turning the family against me. He wants at least a written apology so we could move past this, but I refuse to give him one. Mom wants me to do it as soon as possible. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole in any way, shape, or form. I'm so sorry for the loss of your brother. I have no problem cutting contact with both your stepfather and mother. Your mother allowed your college fund to be revoked? She might as well be dead to me if I was in Opie's position. Not the a-hole. Jesus. Why is your mom with someone who's so cruel to her children? And he wants a written apology? I vote for crapping on his front step and telling him that's all the apology he'll ever see from you. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend that her getting treated like a doormat is her choice and that I won't do the same? My 27 female partner, Sam, 32 male, and I have been together for about 3 years. Our relationship has always been a little odd from the outside. Sam works 80+ hours a week as a lawyer at a large firm, while I work as a policy analyst for the government at a nice 37.5 hours a week in comparison. Before we dated, he told me that he wants to work up to being a partner and that would require long hours. I told him that I prioritize work-life balance, even if it means a lower salary. We agreed to date, knowing this about each other. My best friend, Vicky, 27 female, and her boyfriend started dating our first year of uni and have a rocky relationship. The boyfriend cheated on her in our last year of uni and has since been caught cheating again twice. Vicky, against my advice, has chosen to stay with him. Sam recently got a promotion and, as part of the deal, was assigned an assistant. When I met her, I kind of got a vibe that she was crushing on Sam. She was really flirty and very attentive to Sam, which he pointed out to me first. He said that he'd still keep her on as assistant, but he would make sure nothing got out of hand. I wasn't concerned, because I've never had a reason to worry that he would cheat on me. One night, Vicky and I got dinner and later decided to go back to my place. Sam's office is in between the restaurants we were at in my apartment building, so I offered to go drop off some food for him. He asked Vicky if it was okay if we stopped, and she agreed. When we got to his floor, he was working in a glass-paneled room alone with his assistant. I didn't think much of it, dropped off the food and left. I also want to add that there were lots of other people in the office. As soon as we left, Vicky asked if that was the assistant that I thought had a crush on Sam. I said yes, that they often work late together. She got angry at me, saying that I was treating this like a joke, and that if I want to keep my man, I have to stake my claim, or something. I explained to her that I wasn't worried that he would cheat and that I trusted him. Vicky told me that she was certain that he was cheating and that I should force him to ask for a different assistant. I was getting kind of annoyed, but it got worse when she said, amongst other things, that Sam knows he can't cheat on me and I'd let him because he makes more money than me, so he doesn't need to respect me because he pays more. Sam's salary is around 3 times mine, although I have an okay salary myself, $85,000, and don't need him for money. We split bills percentage-wise, so I pay less than he does, but it's equitable and we agreed on it. I told Vicky that just because she's okay being treated like a doormat doesn't mean I am. And that if Sam cheated on me, I would leave him as respect is essential in a relationship. I also said that she had no place offering relationship advice considering her boyfriend is a serial cheater, and they fought all the time. And that if she wanted to keep complaining to me, I should start charging her. It was mean, and I feel really bad about it now. And she hasn't talked to me since. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. She's projecting. And she insisted on being rude while refusing to drop it when you disagreed politely the first time. Exactly this. She can't trust her partner because he had cheated many times, and therefore doesn't understand that other people can have trusting relationships. Not the a-hole. Congratulations for being in a mature relationship where you aren't paranoid about your significant other banging everything in sight. That's a great place to be, and you weren't wrong to tell her to cut the analysis. She stepped way over the line. That being said, might not hurt to reach out and try to soften what you said. Unfortunately, sometimes the truth hurts, and you put it on her pretty good. Not the a-hole. How someone like that could dish out any kind of relationship advice, let alone advice about cheating, absolutely baffles me. Am I the a-hole for not hiring back my recently turned vegan chef who quit in a fit of rage after he refused to cook meat and blames it on a mental health crisis? My wife and I own a restaurant, and our specialty is our variety of locally sourced meats. Recently, our head chef has come out as vegan. We were very supportive of him, and even started buying vegan foods for him to eat at work. Last week, he informed us that he couldn't work with meat anymore because it conflicted with his values. Although this was an inconvenience because he was the head chef, we were understanding and decided that we would assign other chefs to work with the meat. Then last Sunday, he told us he no longer would be ordering meat from our suppliers, didn't want to see or smell meat around him, refused to work in preparing the menu for the fall, and other duties that are directly related to his title as head chef, and that he just didn't feel comfortable working in an establishment where meat was served. When asked what solution he proposed, he said we had to stop serving meat. We told him that wasn't going to happen. We had already tried to accommodate him, but this was unreasonable. He then gave us an ultimatum. We either become a vegan restaurant or he quits. I told him he was getting worked up and suggested he sleeps on it before he says or does something in the heat of the moment and regrets it later. He said he didn't have anything to think about and quit on the spot because we are a couple of murderers who profit off the torture and suffering of animals, and he was disgusted at us, and we're a pair of C-words, etc. He said a bunch of nasty things, and even as he was walking out the door, he kept yelling, in front of the customers, about how we and everybody who works here have no morals or empathy, and all we care about is money, and he wished we were cooked alive. Then yesterday, my phone starts ringing, and it was him wanting to apologize for his behavior and ask for his job back. I told him not gonna happen. He had disrespected and insulted my wife and me in front of our team, disrespected and insulted our entire staff, and caused a scene in front of the customers. Absolutely unacceptable behavior. Sorry, but no, you can't have your job back. He said he was having a mental health crisis, that's why he acted out. I'm sorry, but that's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. You just don't drop that sentence and expect me to act as if nothing happened. Actions have consequences. To throw that sentence there as if those were the magic words that made all problems go away. After talking about the situation with some friends and family, A lot of them are telling me I'm an a-hole because if the man has a mental health issue that caused him to act out, then I must hire him back and get him help. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You attempted to give this person every single accommodation you could think of. You told them to take a breath and sleep on his decision before doing anything drastic. In my mind, you already went above and beyond to accommodate this person. So you don't set yourself on fire just to keep this guy warm. Most likely what happened is that you realized there really aren't many, if any, opportunities for strictly vegan chefs in your area. And when the reality of not having a job hit him, he came begging. The thing is though, hiring him back would be risky. What if he decides to purposely destroy a shipment of expensive meats? What if he stops putting meat in certain dishes, resulting in you having to compromise meals? What if he decides to tell your staff and your customers that he wishes you would all be cooked alive again? Quitting for moral reasons is one thing. Quitting the way he did, making outlandish demands, and wishing that everyone in your restaurant makes him unfit for employment, regardless of his mental health status. And if he gets his stuff together and comes back later on down the line, apologizes, tells you how he's in therapy or on medication, etc., then maybe you could consider hiring him back. But until then, you have to do what is best for your employees and your family, not the a-hole. A head chef in a restaurant that specializes in meat dishes that decided he wasn't going to cook meat anymore should have lost his job right there. Yeah, what this guy did is like if an NBA player said he was no longer going to shoot the ball no matter how open it was. Not the a-hole. You're correct that mental health crisis is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. If your chef had come to you and asked for time off to deal with issues and you said no, you would be the a-hole. Instead, he cursed you and your wife in front of staff and customers, and he walked out without notice, leaving you in a bind. He quit, but he deserved to be fired. That's how I feel. This is someone who has worked with me for 6 years. I know him very well. Fair enough that if he actually has mental health issues, he maybe wanted to keep it private, but he never mentioned anything in the past. It felt more like exactly that, a get-out-of-jail-free card, like he was expecting to say the words and I would hire him back. He has seen in the past how other employees have had mental health issues or difficult personal situations, and we have gone above and beyond to accommodate them. He knows if he had mental health issues, he could come talk to us, and we would have worked something out. But to behave like an A and then just say, oh, but I was having a mental health crisis. And now I'm being told I must hire him back, otherwise I'm discriminating. He quit, and he disrespected my entire staff and made a scene. He can be my best friend, but if you behave like that, in a way that can also affect my reputation in business, then I don't want you in my team. Not the a-hole. You can be sympathetic to his mental health and not hire him back. You didn't mention if he said he was actually getting help for his mental health, which would be key for me to even slightly considering bringing him back. Probably still would not, as he would probably still have the same opinion about cooking/serving meat. I did ask if he has a therapist or somewhere to turn for help. I've struggled with depression for years, and I was more than happy to recommend my own therapist or work with him to find him one he would click with. He said he didn't have one, and didn't really need to talk to anyone. Again, if this is true, sorry that you're going through it, but not my job to hold your hand and walk you to the therapist's office myself. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for publicly posting a message from my brother's landlord? So I, 26 male, am a twin. My brother and I had a very rough childhood, and it took a horrible toll on him. He ended up with a really debilitating mental illness, and has suffered from substance dependency since we were in our teens. I love my brother so much, and I've always done my very best to be there for him. But if any of you have had a loved one with these issues, you know how hard it can be. 2 weeks ago, he passed away from an overdose. It broke me honestly. Despite everything, he was my best friend in the world, and I feel like a spare part without him. My brother lived by himself in a flat, which is where he passed away. I won't get too detailed, but it was a few days before he was found, so there was some cleanup required in the flat. I guess he was in rent arrears too, because yesterday, 3 days after my brother's funeral, his landlord reached out to me via Messenger. He said, and I quote, "Hi, Opie. I'd once again like to tell you how sorry I am for your tragic loss. I cannot imagine how you feel having lost your brother. I know you were his only next of kin, so I just like to get the feelers out vis-a-vis a monetary issue. Your brother was quite behind on his rent and owed £1,500. With the cleanup I paid for following the incident, the total comes to £1,550. As you're the sole inheritor of his estate, I'd like to negotiate with you how we're going to go about reimbursing this payment. I understand this is a large sum, so I'm willing to work out a monthly plan if that works best for you. Honestly, I kind of flipped. My brother hasn't even been dead a month, hasn't even been in the ground for a week, and I'm very, very much still grieving. I haven't even really processed that he's gone. I can't really believe that this guy thinks it's appropriate to start bugging me for money so soon. I went on a huge rant to my husband about it, and ended up not responding to the message but screenshotting it and posting it to Facebook. Several of my friends agreed that this guy was totally over the line, but he messaged me later absolutely furious that I was trying to ruin his livelihood and lambasting him for doing his job. We ended up having a bit of an argument where nothing really got resolved. Was I out of line here? Was I justified? Edit. Something I've realized was unclear. The cleanup landlord paid for was not the biohazard cleanup. My husband and I paid for that. However, the landlord paid for an ordinary domestic cleaning service to come in afterwards, and after my brother's stuff was collected. This is the cleaning cost he referred to. Something coming up a lot, so I'll put it here. This dude owns at least 5 properties currently, and has been a landlord for at least 25 years, per his own website and social media. I highly doubt my brother's the first tenant death he has ever dealt with. Not today, Hall. It always baffled me how people think the next of kin is somehow responsible for the deaths of the dead. He didn't say next of kin was responsible. He said, and is right, that the estate is responsible. The landlord tried to intentionally muddy the waters by both talking about the estate and also a monthly payment plan. There is no such thing as a monthly payment plan with an estate. Either the estate has the money or it doesn't. The monthly part was what mostly upset me, to be honest, because that's him pretty much directly admitting he's expecting me to pay out of pocket. Not today, Hall. He should go through the proper channels as a debt would as per of the estate. If your brother has no money in the estate and the laws don't require the family to pay him, he's out of options other than guilting you to pay him. See, this is kind of what husband said. He works in a law firm, though this isn't his area, and suspects landlord messaged me directly because he has no legal remit to claim this for me. You're the a-hole. I'm really, really sorry for what you've been through, but I think publicly posting this message was wrong. The landlord needs to make a living, especially at a time when people are struggling financially. And as miserable as this has been for you, you do have to be prepared to tie up loose ends. The landlord waited 2 weeks and phrased his request as tactfully as he could under the circumstances. If you felt it was too soon for you to deal with us, you could have simply told him that instead of exposing him to public ridicule. Once again, I'm so sorry about all you've been through, and I'm sorry to call you an a-hole. It really does just mean I think you're technically in the wrong in this situation. Next story. Am I the a-hole for turning my husband's friend and his girlfriend away when they came to visit? My husband and I have 4 kids. He has a close friend named Mike. He used to visit us regularly with his wife Lillian and their 2 kids. So Lillian and I also became best friends. We'd see her every week at our house, and our children started hanging out together a lot. Lillian and Mike unfortunately got divorced 8 months ago, so no more family visits for Mike. But Lillian and the kids kept visiting weekly. Last Sunday, I invited Lillian and her kids for dinner. My daughters and I prepared favorite kids' meals and did some cleaning as the girls were looking forward to see Lillian and the kids. Well, my husband had Mike come over Sunday morning. Mike said he also wanted to bring his new girlfriend over dinner later on. I apologized and said I was already having guests over. He asked who they were, and I said Lillian. He was taken aback. No idea why, as he knows I'm close to Lillian and invites her over all the time. Then Mike asked me to call Lillian and cancel her visit because he wanted to bring his new girlfriend to come meet me, my husband, and the kids. I told him sorry, but I can't cancel dinner. Mike reminded me that his girlfriend is his family, and since he's my husband's friend, then I should be welcoming her to my home and get to know her and let her get to know the kids. The conversation got nowhere, and my plans for the evening were assumed. Lillian came with the kids, and then the door rang while we were eating, and it was Mike and his girlfriend. My husband opened the door, but I followed and refused to let Mike in, and told him I was already having guests. But he demanded that I tell Lillian to leave, since she had her chances of visiting but his girlfriend never did.
I argued with him and said he doesn't get to dictate who is welcome to my house and who isn't, and told him to please leave and not interrupt dinner for my guests. He left after causing a scene. Now my husband said I should have handled it better, and I had no right to treat his friend's soon-to-be fiancée that way, since she's family and he wants to maintain good relationship with his friend. He called me judgmental and rude towards his friend, and should apologize because I will cost him a 15 years friendship with Mike. Mike was upset and claimed I was ganging up with Lillian to spite him, but I care about my friendship with her. Now for the top comments. Not today, Hall. I'm having a hard time imagining people like Mike can exist. Not today, Hall. I'm not surprised at all. Reddit has molded me to darkness of crazy. Opie, he only pushed so hard because he wanted to spite the ex for his new. I think Mike is gonna get dumped. Imagine showing up at someone's door for dinner, and then realizing your boyfriend has already been told you aren't welcome there at this time, and then boyfriend starts demanding the hosts kick out their guests? Oof, I'd run so fast. Not today, Opie. Mike is an entitled A. And then to realize the guest your boyfriend is trying to have removed from someone else's home are his ex-wife and his children, who he already knew were going to be there. I'm just imagining the poor girlfriend standing there all dressed up, maybe even with a bottle of wine or a casserole dish in her hands, wondering what in the living hell is going on, and then putting two and two together. I'd be mortified. I hope she dumped his butt. Well, now we all know why Lillian left him. The sheer entitlement of that a-hole is astounding. It's your home, and he doesn't get to tell you who you can or can't invite into it. Nonetheless trying to demand who can or can't be friends with. Holy crap. Not an a-hole. Edit. Just got to the last paragraph, and I am now super pissed at your husband too. His friend acted like a total jerk, and he expected you to apologize? Let's stamp his forehead with a-hole while we're at it. He should be supporting the prior plans and offering another night for dinner with Mike. You guys can be totally excited to meet his new girl on a night where you didn't have prior plans. If this has been a dance recital or another activity not involving Lillian, I doubt this would have even been an issue. I would bet $100 that Opie's husband told Mike his ex was coming over that night. Then Mike decided that it would be a good idea to flex the fact that he has a new girlfriend in front of his ex. He also wanted to prove that Opie and husband value him over his ex. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for firing a person who is just trying to make a living? I, 30 male, a general manager at a big box retailer, think Walmart, Target, Best Buy, and have been for about a year, though I've worked here total 5 years. I've had this employee who has been great. I'll call her Sam. Hard worker, been with the store for 3 years. But recently she's joined some sort of MLM. Don't remember the exact one. Something like Tirado? I don't know, some essential oils company. Anyways, I've been getting complaints from customers and other employees, saying that she's been pushing her oils while helping and talking to them. I had a talk with her about it. She apologized and said she wouldn't do it again. That was about a month and 3 weeks ago. The complaints haven't stopped, so I talked with the store manager, Big Boss, and last week we let her go. Well, since then, other employees have complained to me that it wasn't right, that she was just trying to make a living. While I understand that, it's strictly against our policy to run a side business while you're working, and to my knowledge it's the way with most stores. Plus, we sell essential oils too, so by doing this, she's directly interfering with our business. So am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. She was going under your nose and running a business in your business. Also, I believe the company you're thinking of is doTERRA, one of the most predatory companies, second only to Young Living. You don't want to associate with them, so glad you got that crap out of your store. Not only that, but their products are garbage, and they advise people to consume their essential oils, which is never advisable, according to the FDA, CDC, the Mayo Clinic. Not the a-hole. Her selling her products would hurt your store if it bothers the customers. She was very unprofessional. I doubt she cared about being professional, and likely was just using the job as a way to increase the number of potential customers she was exposed to. She was hurting everyone else who worked there, and was given ample warning. A lot of places would have fired her on the spot at first offense. Definitely not. It's store policy. You wouldn't allow solicitors into the store to do it. That's exactly what she was doing.
Update. Am I the a-hole for cutting off my mother-in-law after she made a joke about poking holes in our condoms? Original post. I, 38 female, have been with my husband James for 4 years. We're both child-free and don't plan to have kids in the future. When we first got married, we explained this to our families. My family was fine with it, but his wasn't, especially my mother-in-law. I'll call her Mary for privacy. She is passive-aggressive or outright tells us we'll change our mind soon. For example, she'll say things like, "I can't wait to be a grandma," even though we've made it clear that we don't want children. If we try to respond, she just pretends not to hear us. This has made me very uncomfortable, and I've told my husband multiple times, but he just brushes it off, saying she'll accept it eventually. However, things came to a head recently. James was hosting a dinner party and invited his family as well as mine. While we were eating, my mother-in-law jokingly said, "You know, I've thought about poking holes in your and James's rubbers so I could be a grandma. It's so smart and you'd never know," before laughing. I was horrified. After that, I excused myself and left the house. James followed, saying I was being dramatic and that it was just a joke. I told him it wasn't funny and asked what would happen if she actually did something like that. We argued for a bit before he stormed back inside and I drove off. I've since blocked my mother-in-law on all social media and deleted her number. Now the whole family is furious with me, calling me sensitive and paranoid. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Mother-in-law's comments, including the one about the rubbers, have all been way over the line and squarely in the none of your business category. Your husband should have handled this with his mother quite a while ago. Now he has no choice. Tell your husband the reason you have gone to the lengths you have gone. Leaving the dinner, blocking his mother in social media, and deleting her are all because he is failing to safeguard you from her. This is his responsibility because it is his mother. He needs to stop brushing it off. He needs to go see her face to face and say, "Mom, you are hurting me when you press us for grandkids. We are not having children. That's my final decision." You need to stop mentioning it to either one of us. By mentioning it at dinner, you cross the line and you need to apologize. To never speak of us having kids in front of us again. Yes, but he won't confront Mom. I think you need to tell him with his threat from mother-in-law. Either he needs a vasectomy, minor surgery, or you need to get your tubes tied, more invasive surgery. It's an easily fixable situation, OP. Tell hubby to get the snip. His reaction will tell you why he won't shut his mama down. You're not being sensitive, you're being sane. That's not a joke, it's a threat. And your husband needs to get his head out of his butt. If he won't stand up to his mom, he's part of the problem. Get that snip, OP. You deserve better than this. Question. Why don't one of you get fixed if you're adamant on not having kids? It's my husband who refuses to get a procedure done. I've already offered to get my tubes tied and other procedures, but he says he's not ready yet and doesn't want me to get surgery either until we're both ready. We're referring to him, because I'm only waiting on him right now. He wants kids. Yep, he's on his mommy's side. Completely. Now for the update a few days later. After everything that happened, I had a talk with my husband last night about wanting him to take a stronger step toward our commitment to being child-free. I told him that unless he got a vasectomy or a similar procedure, I wouldn't be comfortable sleeping with him. I want him to show he can stand up to his mother, and that he is as committed to being child-free as I am. Although honestly, I started doubting that after posting the first story. Not in a rude way, of course. My husband said he still wasn't ready and that I was moving too fast. He added that by asking him to stand up to his mother, I was essentially asking him to disrespect her for my sake. At that point, I asked him directly if he wanted kids or not, telling him to stop beating around the bush because I would divorce him and disappear if he didn't. That finally got him to open up, and he admitted that he did want kids, and had secretly been hoping for either an accident or that I would change my mind, just as many of you in the comments had predicted. But what really shocked me was when he confessed he'd actually considered tampering with our birth control before, but just hadn't done through with it yet. It now made sense why he only wanted to use rubbers for our birth control. After that, I told him that, as of now, our marriage was over and that I would be filing for divorce as soon as possible. I made sure to tell him that any child I could have had would never be in his or my mother-in-law's grasp. He tried to protest, but I was firm on leaving. Honestly, he was planning to baby trap me. Nice try, but not with me. Right now, I'm staying at my sister's house. I'm planning to find a lawyer to start the divorce proceedings, but I know I can't go back to that house with him or my mother-in-law involved in any way. This entire situation has left me feeling very shaken and worried. Why? Just why? Why would you get into a relationship with someone who doesn't want kids if you want kids? I cannot understand people like this man. How stupid it is to get into a relationship hoping your partner will change their minds. These are stupid people. Planning on tampering with birth control? Now that's just diabolical. My ex-husband thought I will change my mind. I made extra sure current husband also didn't want kids, been together for almost 20 years now and child-free. Now hold on a second. If he tries to change your mind about divorce, tell him that you'll stay on the condition that he signs the form for you to get your tubes tied. Either way, you'll get divorced. But at least you won't have to worry about kids in the next relationship because you'll just let them know your tubes are tied. He'll probably end the marriage or cheat on you and get some dumb broad pregnant. That's freaking genius. The fact that you have to have a husband sign off on it is utterly stupid. But this is one way to get it done. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my wife spend money on her best friend? My wife has known her best friend since middle school. Her friend is a lawyer and her family's quite well off. She makes a lot and is generous with it. My wife has had a few things paid for by her friend. Specifically, she covered my wife's portion of her bachelorette trip because the other friends didn't make much and she covered it. She also paid part of my wife's rent twice, and she usually picks up the bill when they go out for food. This friend is now marrying a doctor and I don't think they have any trouble paying for anything they want. My wife is a stay-at-home mom and I'm a mechanic. I recently brought home a $3,000 bonus, and when I told my wife, she immediately started talking about buying her friend a really expensive necklace from a brand she knows her friend wants. She showed it to me, and the cheapest necklace is $2,000 on a website. She insisted I should spend the bonus on a wedding gift for her friend. I shut her down and told her it's my bonus and that she can't expect me to buy her friend something this expensive. I don't think wedding gifts should even exceed $100. She began arguing, saying that I spend money on lunches out and hobbies that cost a lot. So why can't she spend some money on a gift for her friend? I do spend a bit on my hobbies and have 2 cars, but I also work hard. Plus, her friend and her fiancé, who is a doctor, already own a house while we were still renting. I told her she was being unreasonable, and she insists we sit down and tally everything I've spent on myself in the last year. If it's higher than $2,000, she thinks I should pay for the necklace. I think it's ridiculous to compare my spending to an extravagant gift for her friend, and I'm refusing to let her buy it. She insists her friend has spent a lot on her and argues that we saved money because her friend pays for meals and activities whenever they go out, so it doesn't come out of our money. I get that the unbalanced relationship isn't ideal, but my wife could decline expensive outings if she wanted to even things out. Now, she's refusing to talk to me, and I'm wondering if I'm the a-hole here. Not the a-hole for refusing to buy your wife's friend an expensive gift that costs more than half of your $3,000 bonus. However, you may be the a-hole if there's an unequal distribution of money and limited input from your wife on how it's spent. When one spouse stays at home, the breadwinner can't lay total claim to the income. It's not my money versus our money. Supporting a stay-at-home spouse requires more than just covering basic needs, while unilaterally spending on hobbies and multiple vehicles, especially if you're also frustrated about renting instead of owning. Your wife has a valid reason to question your cumulative fun money expenses. If you're genuinely concerned about whether you're the a-hole, it could help to sit down and tally up everything you've spent on yourself this year. You might find she has a point and that you're spending significantly on yourself while she gets very little. Some might even see this as financial control, considering the power dynamic in play. As the breadwinner, you hold much of the leverage. The devil is in the details. Without the history or context, OP is obviously not wrong. But these kinds of posts tend to hit on other concerning things that could be worse than what he is defending himself from. Not guaranteed at all, but this should raise a few eyebrows at least. The devil is in the details. For sure, it always is. But this definitely raised my eyebrow. It sounds like the necklace is really a straw man argument for a much bigger gripe his wife has about how finances were split. OP, my husband was a stay-at-home dad when our boys were young because I generated a significantly larger income from my growing business. And we agreed that as long as the kids were with one of us, it didn't matter who. After we had twins, they went to daycare 1 day a week because he literally had his hands full. From the start, we agreed on an equal amount for hobby money/fun money for each of us, despite our income disparity. We could spend this money as we wished. It was where birthday gifts for each other came from. All other money was considered joint funds for bills, savings, pensions, etc. My question to you is, why do you believe you deserve hobby money because you work hard, but your wife doesn't? Believe me, I worked 16-hour days in the beginning getting things off the ground, and even with just one child at a time, I realized I had an easier deal. My husband couldn't take a break unless the baby was sleeping. He was exhausted from constantly watching for safety issues, choking hazards, making baby food, feeding, playing, reading stories, and walking the floor when our son was teething or had cramps. We both did night duty, so we were both tired, but he had no let up. He loved being a stay-at-home dad, but once our younger two started school, he was also rather relieved. He said, I wouldn't have missed those years for the world, but I never ever want to do them again. Parenting alone with small kids is a job, and a stressful one at that. Why does your job deserve a hobby fun, but hers does not? Your wife deserves money she can save up and spend on a gift for her friend. Money she doesn't need your permission to spend, just as you don't ask her permission to spend your hobby money. If you don't see that, and clearly you don't, then it means you don't recognize her work and the efforts she put into the job of raising your children as having any value. You're essentially saying you don't see it as work. If I were your wife, I'd not only be angry, but I'd also feel completely demeaned. Shame on you. Most definitely you're the a-hole. Opie said that the best friend has covered his wife's portion of the rent on 2 separate occasions. How the heck does that work if his wife is a stay-at-home mom with no income? And even if she does have some sort of income, maybe an online presence, or she does some type of freelance work online or whatever, why would Opie ever let someone else cover his wife's portion of the rent? It makes 0 sense. 100% agree that the Opie is the a-hole. Every single element of this post and OP's reply just reek of it. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my disabled cousin at my wedding? I, 26 female, am getting married soon to my amazing fiancé Liam, 30 male, and I'm struggling with whether or not to invite my cousin Tom, 29 male. Tom has a developmental disability, and while he is almost 30, he has the intellectual capacity of about a 7-year-old. I've always tried to be patient and understanding, but he has consistently crossed physical boundaries with me in ways that make me really uncomfortable. I've always been an early bloomer and have a larger than average chest. Because of the sports I did in high school and continue to this day, I would say I'm in good shape. I only mention this because it's often the reason my family uses to justify Tom's behavior. Over the years, Tom has touched my chest and butt quite a few times. He's also hugged me tightly and tried to kiss me, and even though I immediately told him to stop each time, it never seems to stick. He tells his caretakers, nurses, and even live-in caregivers that I'm his girlfriend. He doesn't like Liam because he insists Liam isn't my fiancé, believing instead that he is my boyfriend. Tom also talks about how he will marry me. It kind of feels like when a little kid tells their parent they're going to marry them, but it's still very uncomfortable. I've brought this up with my family, but they always downplay it, saying Tom doesn't understand and that he's just showing affection. The excuse they most often use is, he's a little boy in a man's body, and you're a conventionally attractive woman. When I told my mom how uncomfortable it makes me, she said it probably entertained his behavior too much, and that is harmless. She insists I should just be firm, but anytime I've tried, the family accuses me of being mean to him. With my wedding coming up, I want the day to be relaxed and special without constantly worrying about Tom overstepping boundaries. When I told my family that I was considering not inviting him, they were outraged. They said I was being unfair, cruel, and that he'd be devastated not to come. My mom even said it would ruin his day and make it obvious that he's different, which it thinks is heartless. I understand that Tom can't help certain behaviors, but I feel like my family has completely ignored my feelings on this. They always brush off my discomfort and say it's my responsibility to manage it, or that he doesn't know any better. But it's my wedding, and I don't want to be on edge the whole time. Liam says I have every right not to invite him, especially because of how he treats both of us, as though our relationship isn't real. Still, I wonder if I'm being too harsh or unkind, since Tom isn't fully aware of boundaries and doesn't really know what he's doing is bad or harmful, especially because his parents and other family members encourage it. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. If he is a little boy in a man's body, there should be no problem finding someone to look after him. The fact they say you probably entertain him and that this would ruin his day is a hill I would die on. It's not his day, and they have been enabling his behavior for too long. If he can't help his behavior because of his disability, he should have a caretaker that looks after him. He does have caretakers. And my family doesn't like my fiancé because he stepped in between me and my cousin and yelled at him until he cried. You should have eloped. It sounds like the only one in your side is your fiancé. My grandparents are supportive. Both of them are in their late 70s and I didn't elope because they wanted to watch me get married. My grandfather is walking me down the aisle and I'm wearing my grandmother's wedding dress. Can you take your grandparents with you when you elope so they are part of your special day? It sounds like you care too much about people who don't care about you. Make it a special day with your grandparents and forget everyone else. This could also keep you from wasting a ton of money on an event that is just going to make you anxious. My grandparents couldn't stop Tom, but he isn't allowed in their house. I think the first time I saw my granddad cry was the day that I told him Tom had been touching me. I was 13, and he just held me and apologized over and over for not noticing. My grandma has threatened to go after Tom with a rolling pin if he comes in our house again. They're the only two family members who have never made excuses for him. The thing is, both of them are unable to travel long distances. They're getting older and wouldn't be able to come if I eloped.